Hello, YouTubers. Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you get blessed by this message, and if you do, I would ask you to go down and like this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you feel so led to, share this with your family and friends across the world.
Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when evening came, he was alone there, but the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." So he said, "Come." And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. Then those who were in the boat came and worshiped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." This particular account in the Bible is one that is not only familiar to a lot of people who've ever been to church, perhaps familiar to those who've not even been to church. This account where Jesus walks on water, this account where he does this amazing thing. And I really like this particular story because there are so many lessons that can be gleaned from this one account in the Bible. I'm interested today, though, in looking at one particular aspect that actually repeats itself in this story. For you see, Jesus, as we read today, he put his disciples in the boat and he sent them on their way. And while they were gone, or as they had left, Jesus then dispersed the crowds and he went up to a mountain to pray by himself. And it was late in the middle of the night. During the night, the boat was in the middle of the sea. The winds began to pick up. It wasn't a terrible storm. There seems to be no account that the waves were crashing down or that the disciples were throwing things off of the ship. There doesn't seem to be an account that they thought that they were about to lose their lives because of a storm. It's just the wind was contrary and it was hard to maneuver the boat and there were waves. And I don't know about you, I'm not a seafaring person. I'm not a sailor. I've been on a boat before. I've been on different size boats, from a little, what I guess I would call a little dinghy, to a cruise ship. I've been on boats. They don't bother me too much, but I have not been on a boat in the middle of a storm. I've not been on a boat even when the winds were high and the waves were tossing the boat around. I haven't been in anything like that, especially in the middle of the night. So I imagine somebody who's been on water, on the boat, have some knowledge. They'll have some knowledge about how these things go and how concerned they ought to be. But the wind was blowing, the waves were tossing, and the disciples are in fear. On some level, they see the waves are going, and you see a man walking on the water coming towards the boat. And the disciples, I believe very rightly so, were afraid. And Also, Peter got out of the boat at some point when he asked Jesus to ask him to come out there, to command him to come out. And he got on the water and was walking, and the wind and the waves were boisterous and all of that, and he got afraid. And so this account, there's a consistent theme that's running throughout, this idea of fear. And I would venture to say it was a justified fear. I believe that if I were a seasoned sailor and the wind was tossing the boat that I was in around, I may not be too afraid about that if it didn't look like the ship was going under. But if I look up in the distance and I see somebody walking on water, a person walking on water towards my boat, I immediately think people don't walk on water. That's what I think. People don't walk on. I'm in the sea. I'm in the sea, and there should not be anybody walking on water. This defies gravity. It defies the properties of water and how I know water behaves. And so now, if I'm a normal person, I'm afraid of what I see. Now, I'm amazed because as they are afraid and they look up and they see Jesus walking on the water, and naturally I imagine they don't know that it's Jesus walking on the water. They see somebody walking on the water, and they're afraid. And the Bible, Matthew's account, says that they cried out for fear. They were afraid enough to holler because they were afraid. And I'm very curious. It's amazing to me that Jesus, his words to them by Matthew's account is, be of good cheer. Wait, what? They are, I want to paint the picture. I don't want to overdo this, but I do want you to understand that they were in a position that fear seemed to be the correct response. There's wind, there's waves, there's a person walking on water. We're in the middle of the night. It's the fourth watch of the night. This is the time from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. This is the time where the Israelites actually got up and left Egypt way back when. This is the time that many of them believed that the demons were on their way back home from all of the mess they were doing the night before. This is the time where it seems appropriate to be afraid. And Jesus doesn't just say to them, don't be afraid. Jesus doesn't just say to them, well, it's going to be all right. He doesn't pacify them. He gives them a command that is completely opposite of how they should feel in the situation. He doesn't just say, oh, it's going to be all right. He says, be of good cheer. I don't know about you, but when I think about this idea of be of good cheer, I'm thinking about a time when maybe the football team that I play on has just won the championship. That's a moment for some good cheer. This is a time or a moment when the basketball team that I play on has won the championship. That's a time for some good cheer. This is a time where I'm thinking about the aftermath of going through a ceremony of being married, and you're at the reception and everybody's having a great time. That's a time for good cheer. I'm here to let you know that this be of good cheer. This is not just a settle down, it's going to be all right. This is a rejoicing. This is a call for rejoicing. This is a call to have the absence of fear or even concern about the situation. Jesus has responded by saying, I'm here, it is I, be of good cheer. On a boat that's being tossed by wind and waves, Jesus is basically calling them to rejoice. Let me put it to you a different way real quickly. I'll move on pretty fast, but when I see this be of good cheer, what it almost sounds like to me is I've been to football games, been to some basketball games, and there are these people that are on the same level as the field of play. They're down there on the field of play. They don't actually get in the game, but they're on the level with the field of play. And I imagine the reason they are there is so that the people that are playing the game, the home team, can hear them. These are, as you can imagine, the cheerleaders. And so these cheerleaders, what they do is they have pom-poms often. They wave their hands all over the place. They jump about and they shout and woot and do all kinds of things. And they give you letters to spell out. And they give me a H, and, give me an O, give me an M, give me an E. What's that spell? Home. We can all spell. But they do these things all because they are cheering. The team, watch this, the team can be down. They could be losing and it could look like they can't come back. But the cheerleader's job is to continue to cheer no matter what the outcome looks like on the field. And it looks like that's what Jesus is saying right here in the midst of the storm. He's asking them to be of good cheer. This is what Jesus is doing. He's saying, he's letting them know that fear has no place here. There's no time to be afraid. Mostly because, not because of the wind has subsided. I want you to understand, the wind is still blowing, the waves are still going, he's still on the water, the circumstances haven't changed, but his command is because he's there. And that, my brothers and sisters, is how he was looking at them to respond to fear in the presence of him. And what he's saying is, when Jesus is there, you do not have to fear at all. There's no place for it. And so as he tells them to be of good cheer, and it's me, don't worry about that, Peter then gets real bold and said, well, Lord, if it's really you, command me to come to you. I'm going to throw this in on the water. And so Jesus then looks at him and says, come. And Peter gets out of the boat. He begins to walk on the water towards Jesus. And he's walking on the water, and the wind becomes boisterous. The waves begin to stir up. And the Bible says, so first the whole boat was fearful, and now we've got Jesus calling Peter out on the water, and Peter is actually walking on the water to Jesus, and he looks around at the wind and the waves, and he becomes what? Fearful. And Jesus says, oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Because when he began to look around, what happens? He began to sink. And again, this is a response to fear. This is what comes about in response to fear. When we don't have fear and we're going towards Jesus Christ, if we keep our eyes on Christ, there's no reason for fear. We can do the impossible as long as we are looking at him. But the minute we take our eyes off of him and begin to look at our circumstances, what did he do? He began to sink. The natural forces began to take over once again. And Jesus immediately stretched out his hand and caught him before he sank too far, and pulled him up and asked him, why did you doubt? Why did you have little faith? Where did your faith go? It wasn't until they both got back in the boat that the wind and the waves subsided and the disciples came over to worship Jesus. It's a beautiful picture because everything calmed down once Jesus got in the boat. They worshiped him and they praised him right there. They understood his power on some level. They may not have understood his mission, but it seems as if they understood his power. They may not have known, they may not have been able to understand that he actually came to die on the cross as opposed to overthrow the Roman government, but they understood his power. They may not have grasped why he was on earth, but they knew, apparently, they had an idea of who he was on earth. And so my brothers and sisters, when fear comes up in your life, when you become afraid about something, you just need the presence of Jesus. You just need to look up and see that he's not far away from you, and put your focus on Jesus, because if you look at him, you can do the impossible. You can keep from allowing fear to paralyze you and cause you to sink in the sea. God bless you. God keep you is our prayer.
Thank you for joining us today. But before we sign off, I'd be asking you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share this with family and friends. And if you feel led to give, there's a link in the description below.